Hello and welcome to this demo video. Before we get started, I'd just like to explain to you a few things which will relate to all of the basic range spreadsheets. Number one, there is a key on the intro and setup tab of all of the spreadsheets showing what the different color headers mean. The blue headers mean that the cell's formulated, so it's locked and you can't change it. The yellow headers are where you can input data, and occasionally there might be some gray headers, which is just a different kind of data input, but we'll include instructions as and when that happens. The other thing that you can be aware of is there are ways in which you can damage the spreadsheet. So please do take a look at the link where you see this image, which will take you to a web page to show you how to better preserve your spreadsheet. Please feel free to keep a blank version of the spreadsheet somewhere, so that if you do mess up a spreadsheet that you're using, you can in fact just open a new one, a blank one. And some of the spreadsheets only last for a year, and then you've got a blank one to start the following year. So do keep a blank copy as a backup somewhere. And lastly, wherever you see this image, you can click on it. It'll take you back to the store where you purchased this product to see if you've got anything, any more products. One last thing, to see a demo video, you can click on this on a link that looks like this in order to go to the demo video, but that'll take you to the most recent demo. If in fact we've done upgrades and you're using an older version and you'd like to see the demo relating to your version, then do click on the watch on YouTube link, which will take you to that specific video on YouTube. So I think that's all you need to know. So without further ado, let's move on to this demo video. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this demo video for the fuel consumption logbook. This is one of the basic range spreadsheets. It's fairly straightforward, although I did initially have one of these up a while ago, and this one differs to that one, and I'll show you how. It's a little bit more complicated than what you may expect, and I'll show you what it does. When I say complicated, I mean for me to make it, it's not for you to use it, hopefully. Anyhow, this is the setup page. Your name, your business name, or your name will already be in there. You can set up these particular fields over here. So let me talk you through it. Main driver, you put your name in there, or whoever's the main driver of the vehicle. This doesn't really matter, it's just going to show on this page and on the report. Main driver, make and model. Distance, you can select whether you're using miles or kilometers. It'll show here on the mileage for the odometer readings. You'll be able to put in miles or kilometers. Just tell it which one you're going to be doing and just make sure you stick to one. So miles or kilometers. Put in your registration there. Vehicle, again, it's just going for the spreadsheet, it's not going anywhere else. And then you can list up to 10 different fuel stations that you would use. You don't have to put in different kinds of fuel. The spreadsheet will allow for either the basic fuel, standard fuel, or the high quality fuel. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But right now, just put in up to 10 fuel stations, the ones that you're going to use. Then this isn't only a mileage logbook, but it also just reminds you about services and things like that, and tires and whatnot. So what you can do is you can put in your vehicle tax. When was the last time you renewed your vehicle tax, and how often do you need to renew it? When was the last time you had an MOT, and how often you need to renew it? When was the last time you had a minor service and major service? I know for most vehicles, one service will be a minor, the next one major, next one minor, next one major. If yours differs to that, just leave one blank. If you don't use anything here, just leave it blank. So if you always have a major service, for example, just leave minor service blank and put major service. How many? When was the last time, and when's the renewal, after how many months? Pairs of tires as well. I've done pair of tires and pair of tires. I've got two there, one for your first pair and one for a second pair. So if you do, what people often do is get two tires done, rotate them, then later on get the next two tires done, rotate them. You can put the how many miles and when last you changed the tires, and that's it. Once you've set that up, you don't need to use any of these. As I said, if you don't want to use them, leave them blank. This just shows on the spreadsheet, as does that. The two important ones to do is select the miles or kilometers, and to list your fuel stations that you plan to use. Those are the important ones to use. Once you've done that, you're all set up. You can go into the mileage logbook. Each time you fill up with fuel, simply put in the date, the odometer reading. No decimal places, just put the full full miles or kilometers, liters of fuel, how many liters of fuel you put into 2 decimal places, and the price that you paid. That's all. Those are, you need to put in those 4. And then this one is if you didn't fill the tank. So the reason why I've got this in here is obviously we're working out mileage and what it cost and all the rest of it. If you didn't fill the tank, it distorts the figures. So if you go and fill up, if you just go, for example, and you go and put in 10 pounds or something, and you're not actually filling the tank, then just select that. Or alternatively, I know I've gone sometimes intending to fill the tank, and you drive away and you realize you didn't actually fill the tank, something that the machine just stopped, then just come in and tick the didn't fill tank. You'll see at the bottom here I've ticked it, didn't fill tank. And then what actually happens then is it disregards the last entry, because this entry here is dependent on you filling that tank to get the figures for that. So if you don't fill the tank, it will exclude that particular fill and the previous fill. It won't include the figures, and when you start again, it'll carry on and then it will use those figures. So yeah, if you don't fill the tank, just select it and fill the tank on that row, and that's it. Then select which petrol station, diesel. In fact, if you use diesel, the items on this drop down list are the ones that you've put on your intro and setup tab over here. So you'll have those drop downs. And then last thing that you need to do is obviously high quality fuel. Now what I've said by high quality is all the different fuel stations have different names for it, but there's usually a standard quality fuel and a higher quality fuel, whether they call it super or ultra or whatever else. If you use a high quality, just select it. If you use it standard, just leave it blank. That's just to provide some extra stats so you can see which particular fuel is working better for you, if in fact it is. So that's that. One thing I will say is, obviously, as I said before, if you tick that box, it doesn't include it. But when you don't tick the box and you're the last one you fill in, it doesn't give you the stats straight away. What I did on the old version of the spreadsheet a while ago was I worked out everything per line. So I worked these figures out based on these figures. Now, although that was correct, this spreadsheet goes into more detail and actually shows you which stations and which quality of fuel is giving you better return. So what I've done now is, instead of basing these figures on that, these figures are actually based on some of that and the next fill. So it actually looks at what you've actually used, this diesel or petrol that you've put in here. It checks how much you used by the next fill and actually uses those values to calculate. So it will be grey until you come in. If we went go again, let's say 9th of December, 35,500. You can see it, figures there are already starting to fill in, and as you put in more, the figures will complete. So now it knows the figures from the previous time because you put them in. So when you put in a new line, it's not going to show you the figure straight away, but when you go and fill up again, then it will. And that's why when you select you didn't fill up, those figures would have been distorted, so it excludes them. So that's why those are grey and grey. So if those go grey, then it's just because you've either excluded it, or you've excluded one and the previous one can't show, or if there's just one line grey, what that means is that you just have to go and fill up again, and it'll know all the figures that it needs. Tires pumped, oil added, water added, that's just for you. That doesn't do anything else in the spreadsheet. It's just there so you can see when last you had to pump up the tires, when last you added oil, or when last you added water. If you never add them at the petrol station or the service station, you don't need to fill it in. It really doesn't matter to the spreadsheet. The rest of these headers are all automatically calculated. As you can see there, you've got all the next dates when the vehicle tax, MOT, minor service, and major service are due. Those are all based on these dates that you've put in here. If you get to the date, the closer you get, it's going to change color. It's going to go yellow and then red. When you get to date and you do renew it, simply come back here, put in the date when you renewed it, and that will reset to the next date. Then you've got your tires here. As you can see, your tires are similar, but they're not showing you a date. What they do is they actually show you what percentage your tires are at depending on how much mileage you've done and when you've actually replaced them. Now, please, 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 please do not take this as gospel truth, because you've obviously just put in these figures and it's based on what you put in here. Please obviously talk to a mechanic. Don't go ignoring minor services, major services, because the spreadsheet says you're fine, because you may have put in the wrong information. Anything could be wrong. So don't just accept that, but it's an indication based on the values that you've put in here. Then you can see what your distance on the tank. So in other words, this fill, what was the distance I did on that tank of fuel, what were the miles per liter, miles per gallon, price per liter, and price per mile. So you've got all of that information, and it all automatically calculates when you put in the rest of the data. So that's that page. All you do every time you fill up, just simply put in the next line below that, next line below that. If you miss a fuel and you need to, I would put them in order. You can't resort this data; it's not going to work. But what you can do, for argument's sake, if you've missed a fuel fill here, you can simply do that. Right click, copy, come here, the second one, paste values, and then highlight that and clear contents. So you're basically just moving the data down, but you can't actually, don't just grab data like this and move it, because if you do that, it's going to mess up all the formulas. And obviously remember to do these columns as well. But probably the best thing to do is just remember to put each one in one at a time. Don't miss one out and carry on if you plan to put it in. Because even if you put in the bottom and put the correct date in, it's not going to check which was the next fill. It needs these to all to be in order of the fill. Lastly is an auto-generated page, and everything on this page is automatically calculated, so this will update as you go along. It'll show the total distance travels, total liter fuel, money spent, average miles per liter, average price per liter, average price per mile. It shows you the breakdown of high quality fuel and standard fuel that you've used so far. It also gives you a high quality and standard quality price per mile for each fuel station. So you can see BP I filled up at both. Shell I have filled up, but it doesn't count them because it wasn't a full fill. And then Tesco, and you will have all 10 of yours listed below here if you've listed 10, and each one will have a price per mile for the standard and the price per mile for the high quality fuel. So ironically here for me, you can see the high quality fuel is actually proving to be cheaper per mile than the standard, which is quite interesting, because obviously it's more expensive to buy. I seem to be getting better mileage out of it. Here you can see your price per mile on each of the different fills. If again, because I've ticked that one as not a full fill, and because it's the last one, it shows up blank. If obviously if I unchecked it and I did another fill, then that line would appear there. So it still shows the date of the fill, but it just doesn't show a value there. So there's a price per mile for each of the last 50 fills. But once you've done more than 50, they'll just go off the page and you'll just see the last 50. And here's your price per liter for the last 50. So that's obviously what you've been paying for the fuel. And clearly you can see high quality and standard quality fuel. And that's it. Very simple spreadsheets, simple enough to use, I think. Quite complicated to make, but it all works and it all does what it needs to do. So if you just complete that correctly, that should be quite useful to you. And yeah, I hope that this helps you, and I hope that it gives you some useful information for your vehicle and use of it. Thank you very much. Goodbye.